Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Show and Merry Christmas. I'm Berney Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons, here to help you sort through the chaos. So, the bottom line here, it's Christmas. And everybody's not going to have a Merry Christmas. It's been a while since I did an interview, and there's a good reason that we're doing this today. Along with me today is my good friend and brother in Christ, Mr. Eric Colton. He's a man of faith, a servant leader, a protector of children, an intelligence enthusiast. He's a change agent and a leader of UNTrafficked. I'm a member too, but he brought me in. And I thought that being that it's Christmas, I'm reminded, as I said before, that everybody's not going to have a Merry Christmas. Eric is trying to do something about that. He's putting his heart and soul into this, and I thought that you should hear the story. People like Eric are actually doing something about some of the negative things that are happening in this world. We're going to talk more about that today. But without any further ado, Eric, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on, Bert.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Man, I love that flag back there in your background too. Pretty cool. But bottom line is, rather than me going through a lot of rigmarole, why don't you tell the audience about yourself?
Well, I was born in Cupertino, California, went to college in Texas at Southern Methodist University, and about 6 years ago, moved to Northwest Maryland. And I enjoyed out here to be close to my wife's family and allow the cousins to be able to grow up together.
I love it. Well, let's talk about UNTrafficked and what it is and what inspired you to found it.
Well, a week before Epstein was arrested in 2019, I was having lunch with a friend, and in the middle of lunch, she said, "I believe that the Lord is calling you to fight child trafficking." And I said, "Well, I'll pray about it," which means no. And I went in at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day and to my church. And I said, "Lord, if I need to do this and you want me to do this, I'm going to need some blueprints." And so I took copious notes from 6 a.m. to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where I got kicked out because the church was closing. I would have kept writing. I had so much revelation on how to be able to solve the problem, build a comprehensive solution here, and then learn what we needed to build. I needed to learn what was already out there, how to be able to put it all together so that we could be a force majeure to protect and insulate children from grooming and trafficking, sexual exploitation, and in the United States first, and then figure out what systems need to be built in order to be able to support that, and then go international after that. So we've been at it for about 6.5 years, and it's going pretty well so far.
Well, man, you just answered my next question, which is the core mission of UNTrafficked. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that and the issue of human trafficking in America. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I can. I'm not going to focus a lot on numbers today, because no matter what I say, they're wrong. And it's way worse than we think and way more prevalent than we think. And like if I showed you a heat map of children that are being groomed, or a heat map that are online through the digital world, a heat map of people that are regularly viewing child pornography, which is illegal, it would make you sick to your stomach. But it's prevalent and it's everywhere. And so they're now calling child sex trafficking an epidemic in the United States. And so UNTrafficked, our slogan is, "It's time to untraffic America." We are 100% focused here. And our mission statement is broken down into 3 parts, which is guard the innocent, hunt the hidden, and heal the broken.
Wow. UNTrafficked focuses on equipping and mobilizing everyday Americans to fight human trafficking. Can you talk a little bit more about how your organization educates and empowers people to recognize and report things of grooming and trafficking?
I can, yes. And over the last 4 years, we have built and matured the Guardian program, which is now evolved into a Guardian Alliance. And it started off by us building a comic book We did a lot of research on the academic teaching and the 4 to 5 hour long, highly academic training sessions that were being used to be able to train key stakeholders, whether they're hoteliers, whether they're restaurateurs, whether they're parents. And these were lessons to be taught and forgot. And in today's digital age, where there is so much information out there, we decided to, instead of want to present information, we wanted to invite parents to be able to untraffic their home, or to be able to untraffic America one home at a time, one neighborhood at a time, and one community at a time. And so we built a comic book with a bunch of different scenarios that invited them into what is happening in their child's everyday life. We built a video called I Didn't Know, and it really walks through a parent just admitting that they didn't know that their 11-year-old could be trafficked in their own neighborhood. They didn't know that UNTrafficked was around. They didn't know that in partnership with law enforcement that we can go ahead and rescue and recover that child. They didn't know that law enforcement can arrest and convict the perpetrator, and they didn't know there was opportunities for restoration and aftercare. And so we put all of that together, and then we built an operational network to be able to match the content of that video. A, we wanted to make sure that there was integrity in the organization. And then B, we wanted to make sure that there was a seamless plan in place operationally that can take a child all the way through recovery and aftercare. While we don't own any of our own care facilities, we've built out a network where we're connected to all of them, and we vetted them really well. And I'll talk a little bit about our intelligence capabilities when you ask those questions.
Well, there's no reason, no time like the present. I mean, you talked about hunting the hidden, and with my background, that made my ears perk up a little bit. So
Yeah,
talk
love
about how
it.
you use intelligence and technology, and how do you track down and dismantle exploitation?
Sure. Um, we track, expose, and dismantle grooming and trafficking networks, and we do this by using enhanced and advanced intelligence systems. And so, first, I want to boast on our team a little bit. Um, we're just going to call him Rusty for now, but Rusty was a former systems architect of the NSA Surveillance Division. General John, Soup Campbell, he was the military director of the CIA, and Scotty was the director of DISA, the Defense Information Systems Agency, and Mike was the CIO of Gitmo, our process optimizer. And so within our little nonprofit, we've got a pretty stacked team of people that are both driven by their faith, that are very well seasoned in the intelligence community, and they are now retired, or which they call repurposed, in order to be able to take and leverage their expertise and enhance this fight. And so what we do is we essentially, our system is called Overseer, and we've actually built a cartoon character to exemplify what he does, and he scans people with his eyes. I'll show that to you guys later on. And the result of that, and I'll get into what it does in a minute, but as you saw when you joined our 2025 annual meeting, when a special agent from HSI gave his own testimony about working with UNTrafficked, he had stated that without us, there were about a 48-hour window to go find and recover a child. And with us, it was about 6 hours.
Impressive.
And so it's nice to be able to hear from somebody who's in the field that we are making a difference, even to federal law enforcement. And so we're grateful for that. And so what it does is our system scours hundreds of thousands of data points in the digital world. And so when we get a call from a parent that their child is missing, we will send them an affidavit for them to sign. Haynes and Boone is our law firm. They provide everything for us pro bono. And so we definitely want to give a shout out to them and thank them for doing that. And so we are very tight on legally protecting this organization. That's number one. And then two, when we send out that affidavit, we request as much information as we can on that child. And so social media handles, phone numbers, emails, passwords, and then we go hunt the hidden. And so, and then once we find where the child is through geolocation capabilities, we also map out their network. And then we go, oh, look at that, at 10:13 p.m., point of interest, person of interest number one, who's the child, in this case, a 15-year-old, and I'll share a testimony with you in a minute of how this system worked. Person of interest number one was communicating with person of interest number two, the perpetrator or the trafficker, and now we know that they're together. And so then we start tracking both of them. And then what we do is we send an intelligence pack to law enforcement. And I'll tell you, if this technology was put inside law enforcement, it would be stuck there until they got permission and did the paperwork in order to transfer it from one law enforcement agency to another. And so when we do it, it gives us the ability to move the intelligence pack from one law enforcement agency to another and to another and to another. So there are no delays in locating the child. And the traffickers know this. And so the first thing they do is they'll take a child and they'll move jurisdictions. They'll get them out of that town. And so what they'll do is they'll handcuff law enforcement of being able to move quickly. And so we learned this, and then we built a solution for it. And so to give you an example, we had a wonderful 15-year-old girl who was adopted when she was 5. She's now 15. It was a mixed family. Her boyfriend that she met on Instagram, who was 16, said he also came from a mixed cultural home and didn't really like it, and finally convinced her that her situation was bad and that they need to run away together. And then he stated that because his car wasn't working, that his aunt was going to come pick her up. And this 15-year-old girl was talking to a 42-year-old woman the whole time.
Yeah.
And so we needed to figure out how to be able to build tech to learn who the true person was behind the veil of social media. They call those deep fakes, right? So whether it's a deep fake person or it's a bot, or it's an AI image, whatever the case is, we needed to figure out how to be able to identify those, learn the truth, go after the real person. So that was number one. And then two, we're enhancing those capabilities to where there's going to be a fully automated shutoff where those predators won't have access to the child anymore if in fact they're operating in a false identity. So that's number one. So what happened on this case is that we sent that intelligence pack to the county sheriff. It just so happened to be in Spring, Texas, outside of Houston. But we were tracking, and by the time that he received it, his response was, "Excellent. Where did you get this intel from?" And thank you so much for sending it. And so, but by the time he got it, the child was already out of that jurisdiction. And so through multiple jurisdictions, we continue to work with local law enforcement at each one of those jurisdictions. We finally got a hold of state law enforcement. And then 352 miles away, 5 hours and 31 minutes, 2 minutes after the perpetrator and the victim arrived at the perpetrator's home, we made the arrest.
Wow.
They had already drugged her, but she wasn't trafficked yet. And so then we were able to put her in family counseling with her parents for a year with Refuge City, which is in Dallas, Texas. And we were able to completely help restore and oversee that entire process. And now that child is thriving. The family is closer than ever. And as we know, sometimes when there's a trial in life, it exposes weaknesses. And now the family's closer than ever. And so we're really, really excited about that. And so that was one of 1,291 successful cases to date that we have taken in.
We got a reason to be excited. That's God's work right there.
We do.
Stuff
that
happen.
Girl's life has changed forever.
There you go. Well, you were talking about restoration and partnerships. So talk more about UNTrafficked and how they support the restoration of survivors after you rescue them and, the partnerships with agencies. I'm, I know a lot about that sort of thing, but your perspective is a lot different than mine, and I want people to know about that.
Sure. Well, in the world that you come from, working in a large organization like Homeland Security, which is a great organization, especially today, um, there sometimes there are bureaucracies, there
Oh
are
yeah.
processes that are in place that disallow you from being able to move directly or move quickly. And so when we are outside of the system, we have the ability to be able to move directly. And so even though we have to work in partnership with the system, because you can't do this outside of law enforcement unless we have our own um, use our own or work in a network where we have a deputized citizen that operates as if they were law enforcement. They have the ability to do that. We do have a network of those guys, and those guys are typically tier one. So Delta, Navy SEALs, the Marines and MARSOC guys, the recon guys, Green Berets, and so forth, and even Air Force Special Operations Command from your neck of the woods. And so when we do that, typically there's going to be a state government contract with an organization that has to manage the intake. And so we help facilitate that. And then we look for an area where there's going to be beds, and then there's going to be the ability to be able to send them there and then continue to stay in contact with them so that they have what they need through this entire process. And so there are some organizations that won't take a girl if she's high, if she's on drugs. A lot of them won't take a girl if she has not been sober for a straight 90 days. And so we really need to figure out, okay, is she going to a state house? I'm sorry, a safe house? Is she going to a short-term care facility? Is she, is from the grooming of the trafficking, is there any psychological damage that's been done? Or there was a girl the other day that we tried to rescue that was so addicted to fentanyl and meth that in the middle of the rescue, we had a King Air ready to go at a small airport. We were en route, stopped at a red light. She freaked out and ran away. And every once in a while, we have huge failures, and it's horrible. And we looked for her for 4 hours. We couldn't find her. And but this is the reality. And she had agreed for 2 months talking back to us because her pimper, her trafficker, allowed her to be able to go into a library and send emails. And so in these emails, very quickly, she's agreeing and agreeing and agreeing to this process and to this rescue, this whole recovery process. And we're going to take her out of state. She'd been trafficked since she was 14. She's now 33. And when they're an adult, we we can't force them to do anything. They have to make the choice. And either she was in a psychotic episode or something happened in the car where whether it's the long-term drug use of methamphetamines and fentanyl caused her just to want to jump out of the car at a stoplight, and we
Yeah.
couldn't recover her since then. So
And you never know what that stuff will do to a person. I mean, I know
you never know.
family members that took drugs 30 years ago and it stayed with them. And there are documented cases in the military where people have taken things and, it just messes up their whole lives. But let's
Right.
go back. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in fighting child sex trafficking domestically, and how has Untrafficked adapted to overcome them?
Sure. Well, I mentioned one of them. And so it was the ability for law enforcement to be able to move with the case
Yeah,
and without having to wait for legal permission to be able to transfer it. And so we overcame that by building out the process that we have.
yeah,
Two, the best case of using hunter analysts, even the greatest ones that have come out of the NSA and other intelligence organizations, they could only do one case at a time. And so the way that we overcame that is that we built our system in order to bring automation into it to where a hunter analyst, can work with our system and work multiple cases at the same time, where a lot of the heavy lifting and tracking would be done in a in an automated fashion. And then three, I'll say because we are private, we have the ability to work outside and do our intelligence work outside of the government and legal system. And so we are also not uh, affected by the Fourth Amendment and constrained by the Fourth Amendment like the federal government is. And so, we are able to then overcome their their barriers to be able to quickly gain, this type of intelligence and apply it to these cases.
Got it.
And then, one of the most important things is a lot of the local law enforcement agencies don't have a CAC or an ICAC division. CAC means crimes against children. ICAC means internet crimes against children, or they don't have an anti-trafficking division. And so sometimes to find a detective or a local law enforcement who understands how to be able to approach a trafficked child, a lot of the times we have to literally train them on the fly
Yeah.
so they can do that. There's organizations like The Innocent. Jim Caviezel's really good friends with Nate, their founder there. Incredible organization. And, they go in and they train law enforcement all over the United States to specifically do this. Why do Nate and I have a relationship? Because we don't do that. And so we're not just working on our own, but we work with 289 other organizations in order to be able to overcome any of these obstacles that are in the way. And so we operate really as just collective, impactful actions in order to be able to enhance our ability to rescue and restore.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, like, you mentioned once you save these people, what do you do afterward, after they've recovered? How do you help them rebuild their lives?
So that's a great question. So there again, we have a lot of affiliates that are out there, and then some of the affiliates, they help them learn how to cook. They help them learn how to get a vocational job and training. Some of them, help them finish up their schooling and give them a GED. And so Pearl Haven in Hawaii, led by Jessica, she's amazing. And she has built this organization to where they have 40 beds that are out there in northwestern Oahu. And they have the ability to be able to take and finish the education and then do vocational training there so that somebody's life who was completely destroyed now has hope.
Wow. That's huge, brother. That's huge. So
It's
we're in the
amazing.
Christmas season and, time of hope and family, and I'm hoping everybody's all good and having a wonderful time with their family. But, the holidays sometimes heighten the risk of human trafficking. And what advice would you give to a family to stay vigilant and make sure their kid doesn't get snatched?
Sure. One they can go on our website and they can go through the Guardian training. And so they'll know what the grooming indicators are. That's number one. Two, if you're out there, a man or a woman, and you're looking at porn or child porn, there are so many porn sites that are out there that are actually featuring trafficked girls. You're watching rape scenes. They're drugged and they're forced and coerced into that. And so it's not just what you think. It's not just a movie for pleasure. A lot of the times it's a trafficking scene. Layla McElwhite, she came out of Exodus Cry. She's literally dismantling Pornhub, one lawsuit at a time and one signature at a time in order to, and she's proving to the world that a good number of the women that are on that site and girls that are on that site, they never gave permission. People recorded the rape scene and uploaded it into Pornhub. It's not okay,
No.
right? And so, but there are folks that are out there that say, hey, you know what? Porn is just porn. I can do whatever I want. And they choose to continue to fund this trafficking deal. And so that's number one. Two, you know, 82.7% of the time, trafficking is done by somebody who is familiar to the child.
Yeah.
So a lot of people call me up and say, what's going on at the border? What's going on in these hotspot cities? What's going on in these major interstates? How can we stop this? And, if we don't focus on prevention, on getting parents, especially dads, strong dads, to instill really good values into their children and take these methods that we train them in to be able to have these conversations so these kids know what to look out for. And we have a child-friendly version of the Guardian program called the Kid Alliance and a teen version as well, so that the parents can actually have these conversations without scaring them. You and I, when we grew up, we watched Super Friends. We didn't focus on the bad guys. We
Yeah.
focused on the superheroes. Most of the groups out here, sometimes they use fear in order to be able to garner donations. We don't want to do that. We want to be dealers of hope and victory, right? And so a lot of what we do, we built cartoon characters. Those are the Guardians, and they say we're the Guardians. You can be one too, and invite you into this whole process where each one of you that are listening right now, you guys can come and get the training you need on your own time. And then we're building out a portal where there's text notifications, where there's push notifications, where there's reminders of what you need to do. There's pop quizzes on new information that comes up. We will never, ever claim that we have all of the answers. And so we are learning every single day. The only way that we can be effective change agents here is that we continue to learn. We take the humble approach of being a student, not a master. And we want to be able to serve the community in such a way.
Outstanding. Hey, for our listeners who are looking to make a difference for Christmas, are there things that folks can do to support Untrafficked, maybe donations or volunteering or just spreading awareness? I mean, how can folks help?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So, one, they can volunteer, and they can simply go to our website and sign up to be a volunteer. Two, they can make a donation as well. We're a 501c3 public nonprofit organization, and we run on the support of the public, and we are so grateful for that. And then number three, pray for us. Just pray for us, lift us up. And then if you ever want any of us to come out and do a training, we've trained over 2,000 churches. We can come out and train your church how to become a Guardian Center. Bernie, you and I were together at many of the group trainings where we trained in concert with law enforcement and took parents through what it means to become a guardian, and then let them make the decision to continue to learn, through the website portal. And so there's so many different ways to be able to do that. We won the contract for the Dallas Independent School District to train the parents and families to do that. There's 234 schools within that district, and where we get to train them both in English and in Spanish. And we put on multiple trainings a year in order to do that. But again, where we land is that we bring them into the Guardian Alliance. And so where we are not available in physical form to make that training happen, we can go ahead and just have resources for them, like I was telling you about, in a fully automated fashion to continue to train and equip them so that it is at the top of their mind. And it's a difference between teaching them a lesson and building a culture of insulating their children.
Wow. Looking ahead for Untrafficked, what are your goals for 2026 and how can the community get involved? And
Great question. So one, there's 5 pillars. One of them is awareness. The second one is prevention. The third one is interdiction and recovery. The fourth one is restoration aftercare. And the fifth one is policy and advocacy. And so over the last 2 months, we brought on Tammy Brown Rodriguez, and she is a leading national policy strategist where she's written 82 laws over 20 states. And she is now our CEO, and you guys are going to love her. And so she has the ability to be able to scale an organization. Jeff Woodbury, who's one of the senior executives over at ExxonMobil, he joined the board. Alan Durantes, who's a senior legal counsel from T-Mobile, who, by the way, T-Mobile is a new corporate sponsor of ours, and we're doing some really cool things together. Bernie, wait until you hear about one of the large national organizations we're partnering with to be able to keep their kids safe from
Wow.
trafficking and grooming. And so, and then Phil Kelly was the chaplain of the Kansas City Chiefs, and then he became the chaplain of chaplains in the NFL. He's now joined us to build the Sports Alliance. And so partnering with the NFL and with the NBA and with NASCAR and with the NHL of how to be able to utilize and leverage the professional sports community and collegiate sports community in order to untraffic America through their channels as well. And so it's really, really exciting, what we have going on. And we're scaling our programs. In Q1, we're going to be launching the first version of the Guardian Alliance portal. And it's going to be completely interactive, a dynamic learning management system to serve you.
Wow.
And
I'm totally
we, we,
impressed.
we want to be respectful of everybody's time. We want to be respectful. We don't want to overload them with information. And so we're very carefully building this out to bring them in to these bite-sized morsels and continued reminders of how to be able to untraffic America one home at a time and protect their children. So that's
Wow.
one of the things that we're doing. And then two, we're always enhancing our intelligence system. And then three, we want to continue to expand our network. And then anywhere where we can assist the recovery homes and either, sharing a common thread of information that we see from working with all these different organizations with each other, working with like Dr. Allert over at the Institute for Survivor Care. She is amazing, and she was a former CIA employee a long time ago, and she's taken this brilliance to be able to take and enhance survivor care. And so we're always asking her, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And then there is 3 counties where the county commissioners have called us and said, how can we get every stakeholder in our county, all the restaurants, the schools, the colleges, the hotels, the bus stops, the trains, an airport if it's there, to be able to work together with UNTrafficked so you guys can just make sure that the whole county is fortified. And then I'll share with you in Q1, but we're actually going to be tackling an entire state. And so, really excited about that. And so we now have ambassadors in those areas that serve as program managers to be able to fortify now an entire geography. So those are just some of the little things that we're doing.
Wow. Man, I've kept you on here for a long time and you have been so forthright in your answers. But I've got one more big question for you.
Yes, sir.
So here it is, the Christmas season. And as I mentioned at the beginning, everybody's not going to have a Merry Christmas. What message of encouragement can you leave with our audience about fighting human trafficking?
One, pray for us. We need all the help that we can get. We will humbly receive it. Number two, in this giving season at the end of the year, and even if you just need a tax write-off, please donate. Go to untrafficked.org and you can go ahead and make a donation there. And then, just if you have questions, ask them. We are not this, while this might be a very fearful and hard topic to discuss, we have to discuss it because our children are worth it. And so as we really think about this, as we go into the Christmas season, thinking about the birth of Jesus, he came to save the world. The first thing that he said when he was coming out, he recited Isaiah 61. He came to free the captives, to bind the brokenhearted, to restore. We get to do that too. We are literally living out his gospel. And so we're grateful for the opportunity in order to be able to do that. Although outwardly UNTrafficked is UNTrafficked, every one of us inside the organization, we are deeply moved and guided by our faith.
Wow. Man, let me tell you, there's an old saying where I come from talking about walking the walk. People who are from where I'm from understand. You, sir, are walking the walk, and I'm proud to be your friend and your brother. So with that said, I think we've asked all the questions. We've let folks know who you are and where you stand. And I just appreciate, being part of your organization. And I look forward to seeing some of the great things that UNTrafficked is going to do in the future. Once again, my friend, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful Merry Christmas season. Take care of your children, pray, and look forward to a brighter tomorrow in the future. Y'all take care now. Merry Christmas.